Commission, CONAC, on October 2023 reveals that the prevailing rate is still very high in the domains of education, transport, justice, territorial administration, state property, survey and land tenure, the wildlife, finance, that is custom, treasury and taxation, and even within the health sector. In his end-of-year speech on December 31st, 2023, President Paul Biya came back to the fact that he is going to intensify the fight against corruption in 2024. And in today's edition of 360 Degrees, we are asking the questions: why is the fight not yielding enough fruits? Don't go away. We shall be right back. You're welcome back. We go straight to welcome our guest of today. I will begin from my right. Yes, Sambit Kotem. Yeah, I'm sure I got it right. You are of the civil society, and it's your first time to be on 360 Degrees. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Hyson. Truly, it's my first time to be on this panel. But with the rich topic you have, especially at this time, at this point in time in our country, where we're looking at emergence, we're looking at development, we're looking at youth involvement in developmental activities, it is important and right that I present myself to also talk about some of these issues that are really plaguing our society. Thank you very much for having me, and permit me to send a warm salute to Madam Promise Akante on the other side and my fellow panelists on this side, and to the million televiewers of 360 Degrees. Yes. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. To my left, I have Promise Akante. Promise Akante is a journalist. Promise, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, Hyacinth. Happy New Year to the men on the other side in suits. And let me also use this platform to say Happy New Year to my mates of Big C 95. That's Badamak Baswe batch of 95. We are all of Moliku Boya. So a very special new year to us and to the new executive working right now under the leadership of National President Asong Donatus Edet. We are definitely going to handle corruption here on the platform. We'll go back to the president's end of year speech. You remember that yesterday he received New Year wishes from his close collaborators. We definitely hope that during this 1 hour of discussion, we are going to satisfy the curiosity of Cameroonians and will not hurt emotions. We hope so.
We hope so. To my right again, privileged we have Barrister Amungwa Nicodemus on the panel today. Barrister Amungwa Nicodemus is a legal mind, and he is the rapporteur of the Anti-Corruption Commission of the Cameroon Bar Association. Barrister, it's a privilege to have you.
Thank you for inviting me. Happy New Year to your televiewers. I am flattered to be here this afternoon, my first appearance on your platform. Yeah. And I think in the days ahead we'll look ahead to see more of these type of platforms, because the question of the day, I suppose, is what is happening, that things are not changing, despite the strategy, despite the speeches that are coming from above. Why is it that it is not changing? I think we need more of these platforms. Even our anti-corruption at the Cameroon Bar Association is reflecting on getting especially the press on board, because we must go along with the press. It is time we name and shame. It is time we name and shame. And I think in the next 1 hour, we will be edifying your televiewers on what we are doing in our own small corner, if not our big corner, to fight corruption, because you know we are at the core of it. And I just took notes here when you said the Anti-Corruption Commission, CONAC rated, and amongst them we had the judiciary.
Yes.
And the judiciary, and when there is no justice, you should imagine what is happening to a country. So thank you very much once more for having me. I think at the close of the day, we enjoy the program.
Thank you very much, Barrister. And we shall set the pace by revisiting the head of state's speech on corruption and public spending on December 31st.
My dear compatriots, despite the government's goodwill, it is clear that the implementation of various projects to meet our people's aspirations faces a major impediment, namely inadequacy of the required financial resources. This is why I have repeatedly ordered the government to streamline public spending and find new ways and means of boosting public resources. Regarding the reduction of public spending, I have strongly reiterated my previous instructions to the government to reduce recurrent expenditure. Actions implemented to combat corruption and misappropriation of public funds are essential for protecting public resources. They will be intensified in the coming year. Trust in the judicial system is inevitable for perception of the business climate. As you are aware, the judiciary is one of the pillars of the rule of law. Therefore, it is imperative that it should act with complete impartiality and should be impervious to any interference. I would like to assure you that as guarantor of the independence, I will continue to take drastic measures against that. My dear compatriots, despite the government's goodwill, it is clear that the implementation of various projects to meet our people's aspirations faces a major impediment, namely inadequacy of the required financial resources. This is why I have repeatedly ordered the government.
Thank you, and you are welcome back. I begin with you, Sambit. How would you paint the picture of the Cameroonian society as far as corruption is concerned?
Thank you very much, Hysen. Looking at the Cameroonian society as a whole, we what in relation to corruption. Honestly speaking, we want to see if the President of the Republic, like every other normal Cameroonian, look at the society and imagine where we find ourselves, especially in the atmosphere now, where majority of the developmental projects are hurt, majority of the implications of the government spendings are not met with their target. We want to look at the situation with issues concerning infrastructure. Well, it falls under developmental projects. You realize that there are some sort of retardedness, and when you want to push to ask further questions as per what actually is hindering this progress, or what is retarding these issues of developmental issues and others, you realize that at a point in time you have a median point which seems to be some sort of corruption or corrupt practices that are really hindering this process. Now, looking at that and with other aspects within the country, if you sample the opinions of most Cameroonians out there, you realize that they will give you a gross output of what corruption has actually caused the country and where corruption has taken the country to this point. You want to look at the civil service, but before, maybe if I could go to that, we want to look at how corruption is being defined under the Cameroonian law, because you look at Article 134 of the Cameroonian law, it defines corruption, passive, active, and in 134 sub 1 sub 2, and also you want to look at the United Nations Convention against Corruption, which Cameroon ratified I think April 2004. And all these legal instruments actually put in place measures in order to help cop out this disease, because corruption is a disease that when it infects the society, you realize that all other parts of the society fall short of what they are supposed to attain as objectives.
Thank you.
So, yeah, so if looking at that very well, you discover that corruption has played a very big role in the Cameroonian society. But as we progress, we want to develop and look at aspects of how corruption has actually distorted the Cameroonian society.
Definitely, you made mention of the fact that it's a disease and it's digging deep into the different domains of the society. One of those domains is the judiciary, barrister. What is happening with the judiciary? The president was so bitter about it.
Yeah, there's something wrong with the judiciary. I think we recently organized a roundtable conference and a press conference at the Mona Foundation in Yaoundé. It was our first outing since the appointment of the Anti-Corruption Commission members of the Cameroon Bar Association.
Yes.
And I would doff my hat to the president of the Cameroon Bar Association to have had that courage to come up with this particular commission. The judiciary is sick. The Cameroonian judiciary has been sick.
Yes.
And we need a serious therapy. We need a serious therapy to rescue the Cameroonian judiciary. From the words of the president, you could hear impartiality. You could hear impervious to interferences.
Yes.
And these two words are very capital. You know, we operate two judicial systems in Cameroon.
Yes.
And those of us across the Mongo of the common law practice, you know, the way we look at it is not the way they perceive it this way. Because we grew up to know that a thief would not exist in a village.
Yes.
We grew up to know that you could not, we grew up to see bananas, I mean, they get ripened, you go into school, you pluck just one, and you eat and you go to school. This is not the culture. So, you know, Cameroon has missed out on several occasions to hit their target as far as the fight against corruption is concerned. And like they say goes, the taste of the pudding lies in the eating. And Cameroonians have remained in corruption and they have been eating like nice pudding. Each time they spice it, they eat up to the level that the judiciary becomes a target today. It's a shameful thing that the judiciary, that is supposed to be a major player, is supposed to be the window into all developmental projects in the country, is being castigated by the first magistrate of the country, or the first judge of the country. You know, the president of the republic occupies a supreme magistrate. He is a supreme magistrate of the country. Yeah, so when you talk about that this area, it is important because the judiciary is supposed to be the barometer that has to do with investment, be it local or foreign investment. You understand?
Yeah.
So in a country where there is corruption at the judiciary, it means that foreign investors, first of all, they are scared to get into the country to do business. Because tomorrow, if there is anything that happens to your company, if they run it down, you go to court, nothing will come out in your favor. So we are thinking that if the President of the Republic used this opportunity during the roundtable conference, the President of the Cameroon Bar Association, he said it, decisions of the judiciary, of courts, is taken a few minutes after and there is controversy around it. Whereas decisions of courts are supposed to be appealed upon, or are supposed to be, I mean, you hold them in very high esteem.
Okay, Barrister, I'll be coming back to you. Maybe before I go to Promise, just to let our viewers know that you can equally make your voice heard by contributing through the number you have on your screen, through WhatsApp or SMS. Like we always say, do not call, please. Promise Akante, the outing of the head of state, many have the impression that such an outing is coming to cement the fact that some people always say he is at the center of all, even at the center of the judiciary.
You know, Hyson, I'm going to begin from the very basics to the very core so that we go gradually and we understand what we're talking about. Imagine that you are in the house, you are the seniorest brother in the house, and you have junior ones that you have to discipline, you have to control what they are doing. And your father makes it known that you can only notice that they have not done the right thing, but you cannot sanction them. You think that your press is going to frighten your junior ones in any way, because CONAC does not sanction corrupt individuals.
We shall be getting to that.
So I'm just trying to let us all understand that there is something that they say in a local parlance that you sell goat and then hold the rope for the goat. CONAC cannot fight corruption if CONAC cannot sanction those they see that they are corrupt. Now, all they do, if you look at the 2022 report of CONAC,
yes,
they give recommendations. They give recommendations, but who is supposed to implement those recommendations? The person who is not at all bothered by what is happening in the local streets of Cameroon. Like prior to the start of this academic year, like before September 4, CONAC carried out a campaign for a corruption-free back to school. That was a whole long campaign. But trust you me, all those parents who went to register their children for Form 1, lower C, or some other classes, intermediate classes in some of these big government schools, trust me, they get envelopes. Because they had to buy space. And we understand that they have no choice but to buy the place, because others will give bigger envelopes if they don't give. Now, this CONAC's campaign to ensure corruption-free back to school, it's a good initiative. We really love it. But we would have loved to have them in the principal's office or the vice principal's office, or the chain for registration, to make sure that parents have their children's name put in the school registers without them spending a single franc.
And maybe the visits as well should be unannounced.
Exactly, and you know when the different ministries of education launch back to school registration. So CONAC has all of these personnel. You can even have temporary staff to do this, to be present in these schools and make sure that it is absolutely corruption-free back to school. Now, in different places, in the various categories, in hospitals, in the judiciary, and I'm not going to recite them because they already called all like that. Even the uniform corps, police, gendarmes, armies, all of these corps that are being tagged as the most corrupt corps in the country. What can CONAC absolutely do to ensure that it is free? Now, the head of state, in his speech, it's true, he spoke about accelerate the fight against corruption. We have these. We've had rigor and moralization. We had rigor, patriotism, social justice. All of these slogans we have per mandate of the president's term in office. We don't see these words, these slogans being manifested, how they are, because when I remember I was in primary school when we were singing rigor, patriotism, social justice, all of these slogans and talking about moralization, social justice. If all of these were being materialized, practiced, put into serious action, it would have been different. Now, I want to imagine that if my father, may so rest in peace, but if the father of a house, okay, I'm a mother, if as a mother I go back home and what I said the children should do, I come back home and they have not done it, I'm going to sanction. I beat, I scold, I punish, I withdraw your pocket allowance. I do something that's going to pain you that next time you not disobey me. So these people who are in charge of corruption, if the head of state sees that his words, his ultimatums are not being respected, he should sanction them openly. Like Barrister said, name and shame.
Yes,
openly and in public.
CONAC created in 2006. 17 years after, promise is giving the impression that much hasn't changed.
Much has not changed. And you were with us at our roundtable conference, and she said something. You know, a country that does not build on strong institution, that country is doomed. Why do we talk about CONAC when some of the sections of the constitution of this country are not applied? The President of the Republic talks about public spending. Ministers are going to, you find them drive in Porsche cars of 80 million, 120 million.
We shall get to that.
No, we are getting. Yes. So, but I'm coming to chip in something. So, the head of state creates institutions, and he says they should report to him. And he comes back, he keeps telling us, we are going to put robust measures. Why is it that the head of state cannot just empower CONAC? For CONAC to take that responsibility. Because in some other country, such institutions, they do go to court to prosecute. They go to prosecute those that they will find wanting as far as corruption is concerned.
Yes.
So the question you put is that we think that the head of state is part of it. Why are we not applying Article 66 of the Constitution of Cameroon? We create laws in Cameroon, and then they become kind of window dressing, and you are hearing, I mean, people clamor, text of application. And at the end of the day, some of these sections of the Constitution, they are abrogated or they are changed without them being applicable. So it's shameful that we have the measure, we have everything in laws to fight corruption, but we sit behind and we are sloganeering, because I call this sloganeering. So to an extent, I will tell you that the President of the Republic, and again, before, that should be my last on this, remember, the President has tied the fight against corruption to a certain level that people take it not on a very serious note, because somebody who is arrested, at the end of the day, he is in prison. Here, they start mixing it up with politics. What we are saying here is this.
Yes.
The president of the Cameroon Bar said, as of the time that we're organizing a round table conference, he had 200 files on his table, disciplinary files.
Corruption files.
Yes.
Linked with
And he
corruption.
said, if all institutions should have those files, and at the end of the day we publish them, it is not enough to talk about disciplinary files, but we should be able to publish, we should be able to prosecute, and we should be able to make the public understand that if you dare, you'll be part of it. So until you know that the prisons are not only for those that pick this thing left or right, so that is what I'm saying, that the institutions are not strong enough, and the President of the Republic is sitting on everything. They report to him, and there is no execution. Konak cried during our roundtable conference. Konak cried. The network for the fight against corruption at the National Assembly, they cried about reforms. So we need robust reforms, but before then, we should apply the constitution of this country. We don't need text of application to apply constitutions of countries. So that is what I'm saying.
Maybe before, yes.
I just want to chip something to what Barrister actually said. You know, it is very, very pertinent. He talked about the institutions, and he talked about Article 66, that's declaration of properties of civil servants getting into public service and the like. But I would still want to remind Barrister that when you look at the law, remember Cameroon ratified the treaty, the United Nations Treaty Convention Against Corruption in 2004. Yes. And CONAC was created 2 years after 2006. Yes. Some sort of lazy will to implement. And the members of the CONAC were only appointed in 2008. So you see some sort of laxity in implementation. And beside that, CONAC itself gives reports back to the presidency, where the presidency takes the measures in charge of that. It doesn't just end at that level. I may even want to go forward to say, because I'm one of those people, and as a young person, I don't always want to look at only the state, what this presidency, because at the point in time, the president is an institution, the presidency is an institution, but however, we have the state as a whole, which does not only rely on the presidency. We have the civil service and what I want to call is civil society organization, civil society, before talking about the organizations, that need to play a very big role when it comes to also corruption, because corruption affects them more than these other people we're talking about. That is why you look at today, if we're having excess, we presume, it is being presumed that fuel prices will rise in some months. If we're having those cases that affect even the common person in the society, it goes back to the fact of corruption. I want to tag that to Sonaral. How do you explain the fact that Sonara had an incident and it is discovered that insurance were not being paid? So what happened that insurance were not being paid, and we are unable to rehabilitate Sonara, and we need to look for a foreign we need to look for money outside in order to do that. So that is why it comes back to my mind, and what actually comes up to my mind is, how do we actually tackle this corruption? Do we only leave it at the level of the state, or we push in? That is why I will go forward to appreciate some civil society organizations that have been doing a lot, and I want to appreciate that what is being done by the Now movement, headed by Barrister Keremuna, former bar president. They have been doing a lot at the level of corruption, fighting corruption in Cameroon, and there is one aspect with them, among others, that I appreciate a lot, which is that of they talked about budget tracking.
Yes.
If we want to look at corruption or how to tackle corruption as civil society, because it doesn't just touch by the civil servants, it touches the common people more than every other person, and particularly the youths. So, looking at budget tracking in a normal, in a very common parlance, it means, in a sense where we all cry every day that our society is being corrupt, infested, but what do we do to participate to ensure that this corruption does not actually touch us? It means that because every society, from the different subdivisions with the regions and everything, has developmental projects that have been assigned to these territorial administrative circumscriptions, and these administrative circumscriptions have been inhabited by people, origins, what they call the autochtone, and other strangers from different localities. And now, if you find yourself in that community and you believe that the budget that is being sent to that community for developmental issues are not being used, what do you actually do? By budget tracking, it means that at the start of every year, when the budget, the state budget is being adopted and separated as per the different institutions in your community, you should be capable of knowing these different budgets that are being allocated and be following up if the projects that are being allocated for are being. That is why.
Okay.
Yes. It seems more of the solution, but it's good to cite it as now, because we've been talking a lot about the state.
Yes.
So what are we doing?
Yes, thank you. We shall be coming back to more of such solutions. Promise, year in, year out, we sing the song of corruption. Do you have the impression that maybe the strategy need to be changed?
It's not about the strategy, it's about the will. Because we don't need...
And the will is part of the strategy.
We don't need extra text, we don't need new laws to come up, because if you go through all what is spelled out as CONAC's
report. Mission, yeah.
Their goal, what's their roadmap, what are they supposed to, their job description. It's well spelled out, but we just one little thing lacking that cannot sanction the defaulters. But now we also look at where we have been drilled into normalizing abnormal things, like it's okay that you must bribe, it's okay that you must give something, like even if an official does not ask you, like, hey, you never asked money to know how, then you give it because you think that it's a trap, that if you go without giving, you may be proceed for not giving. So a whole lot of brainwashing has been done, and I think that apart from just seeing what to do in offices, we go back to the very roots, because like Mandela would say, education is everything. If you want to kill the people, just tamper with the educational system. If you begin from the nursery, you know, teach these children the importance of saying no to corruption, because it takes two to be corrupt.
And now that the education domain is one of the most corrupt. So it means the future is very bleak.
Very, very, very bleak if we continue this way. But I was trying to say that we should go back to the classrooms, educate our children, because their minds are young. Train these young minds to understand that they don't have to ask. It takes two to be corrupt. I need to corrupt you, and then you need to accept me corrupting you. So help our children understand why it is important for them to say no at a very tender age. And we are growing up, because at this level, Pritigo sang that a benefit cannot be straightened. We have already old people who are corrupt. It's difficult for us to really reshape their minds, but we can begin from the very young ones. You know, in classrooms, we go to the nursery, the primary, the secondary, even though their minds are already also a bit difficult to reshape, but we can begin from there and go up. Now, if there's one thing that CONAC can do that will really, really help, like all of us here agree, is that CONAC should be able to sanction, because it is, you know, let me just take an example, like, okay, I notice something wrong in a child.
Yes.
And instead of me punishing that child, I wait for another person to come and punish the child. You know, you might not weigh the gravity of what I saw or what I heard, like me giving you a reported speech. So if it's about you as an elder brother, you see a junior one going wrong, you correct at the moment. It's different from you waiting for your parent who will come back from work already tired with a lot of stress on mind. The president has a lot of things to do, so let him delegate his powers. You know, give you your own power where you catch this man. Do so, like the police corps. When you pick up a thief, I don't think that they have to go through the presidency. They have the DJS that sanctions all of these things. So we can also have this CONAC to sanction, because it is CONAC going down to the field. We don't refuse that they're not in the field. They are in the field. They are doing some things, but they need to.
They are limited.
You know, the tick-o-tack, as the iron is hot, you hit it, let it get bent at once, or you straighten it for it to stop being bent.
Yes, but you were itching to react.
I just wish to chip in something. It's regrettable that CONAC should be rating the judiciary in the country. The judiciary would have been the base of everything.
Yes.
The judiciary would have been a solution to all of this. Because imagine an institution that rates and they include the judiciary. It's so shameful. It's so disgraceful.
What did the judiciary do for
let me just take a common example. There is what we call denunciation in Cameroon. Some of the ways that you can bring a matter to court is through denunciation. And the State Council of all the courts in Cameroon, he just talked about projects. Recently, if you see the town of Yaoundé, recently some billions or milliards were coughed out in order to repair the roads of the city, as if they are repairing shoes that human beings wear. But behold, that budget, like he talked about it, because I did some training on budget tracking, I will be talking about that. So who is supposed to is not even the citizens of the area. The State Council can suo motu, that is, he can on his own call the Minister of Public Works and asked him,
what is
this road, there was some budget that was coughed out, can you bring up this information to us? Do you know that we have additional institutions in this country, even at the level of the judiciary, to fight corruption? But how often do we publish the results of it? If you look at what we call the Special Criminal Court, do you feel that there's some development that has taken place in this country? Because money has been collected from some individuals that were arrested because of corruption. So when you look at it, we are widening the elephants in the country. The results are not following. You create a special criminal court, whereas this would have been the attributions of the High Court, and you have to find personnel, you have to be paying, and at the end of the day, the results are not coming. So these are the things that when we talk about the judiciary, we are saying that the head of state and those around him have corrupted him also. His entourage is corrupting. No, let me learn.
Yes.
His entourage is corrupting the head of state. Historically, they even corrupt the head of state concerning the history of the country. They corrupt him in all aspects. Just because the head of state does not find time to go down to the field. If the head of state could sanction even magistrates, it takes about 4 or 5 years before magistrates are sanctioned. We have palpable examples. We have been writing to some of the magistrates. They transform their courts, their chambers, to places where they sign debt engagement, they collect debts and all of that. Whereas the roads are there for them to suo motu, take over those cases and call the authorities in charge to report to them. A state council of a country, he represents the state of Cameroon, the interests of everybody, and he prosecutes everybody who is found wanting. But what do we see in this country? We see state council that are there. They use their offices to traffic cases, and they do that with some of our colleagues. They do that even with the public. They call some people to carry their boxes and all of that. So this is what we are decrying, and that is why the Anti-Corruption Commission of the Cameroon Bar Association is settled on the fact that we have to sweep our own door, and we are ready to do that. We have a lot of enemies. It's not long, I must confess to you. We've not operated for weeks, but we have started getting some stones at us. But it takes courage. It takes courage to do the right thing.
Yes, Sambit, when you look at the CONAC report, they gave the fact that in some institutions, the collaboration is limited. Some people in some institutions do not want to collaborate with CONAC to fish out the corrupt individuals.
Yeah, thank you. Hyson, that is I'll comment on something that Barrister just said to link it with what the question you asked. He talked about the fact that budget tracking does not only limit itself to civil society and everything, but even the magistrates and other judicial authorities have that laxity has that obligation. They have the obligation to also do these checks and balances, but they don't have to do. Now, you may want to push yourself further to ask, but why don't they actually do that? You know, there's this issue where we talk about separation of power.
Yes.
And if you find yourself in an environment where the separation of power does not play the role that it's supposed to play, you don't expect those individuals to be able to play their functions. Because if you are a magistrate and you wait for your appointment and everything has to be done by a superior, who that superior heads another institution, not to talk about only political party, but they have different affiliations. And within different affiliations and different ranks, it still boils back to the point of no separation of power. The judiciary, the legislative, the executive doesn't have that separation. So how do you empower these people to do that? Coming back now to your question, which actually posed, you realize therefore that it becomes difficult for these individuals to be able to play the role that they are supposed to play. That is why I had to relate it back, because instead of doing the blame game and every day, the young people who are known as the future of today and tomorrow are keep staying stuck back in the quarters without anything, it is good that they take to their hands their destiny by carrying out these checks and balances. That is why I will still want to appreciate what the Now movement is doing and push them forward, because they are saying they have projects that are going up to do trainings all over the country in terms of budget tracking, which is very important. We have to shift from that space. We have to shift from always accusing the state or some authorities, but taking it to our own selves and ensuring that it's being realized. Thank you.
I have a series of messages. This one is very long, but I'll just try to summarize it. It's coming from Edwin in Frumbot. He says President Paul Biya can fight corruption if he wants, and if he doesn't rise to fight if he doesn't rise right now to tackle the phenomenon, then we are heading to doom. Promise Akante, one of the major problems we have is that some people feel that it's the role of some other people to fight corruption. Some people look at corruption as some other people's thing.
Yeah, that's why.
Whereas to quote Barrister in one of his outings, there is no big nor small corruption. Corruption is corruption.
At the grassroots level, we begin from there. There are things that we have corruption at the grassroots level, and then at the helm, like, you know, it is going crescendo and going up. And if you have to imagine that for something as simple as you know that it is your duty, for example, to maybe fetch water in the house and clean up, and then you want, you know, some small technical thing to be given to you for you to do that thing that is supposed to, that you're normally supposed to do. That, trust me, it's already corruption. It is. But once you are looking for undue benefits, you are already corrupt. And once you receive what you are not due, you are corrupt. So even quarter heads can be corrupt. Even family heads can be corrupt. Now you can look at something as banal as, you know, your daughter is to get married and she has her own person that her heart beats to, and another one who has more banknotes in the pocket comes to, you know, buys you better things, better suits, you know, and gives you more than what the list for bride price asks. You are a corrupt father who has been corrupt to give his daughter to another man for marriage. So there's corruption even at the grassroots level, and we're supposed to fight it from there. That's why we think that going back to the roots, to nursery, primary, secondary schools, for these children to realize that there are certain things that even in class, imagine that you're writing an exam and your friend says, if you show me your answer, I'll come out during break, I'll give you my good day. That is already corruption. Don't think that it is too small. Just that one benny you take to show an answer, and during exams, you have been bribed. Yes. You are corrupt. So we should look at these very basic examples to show our community that it's not about those who receive millions in offices to sign your document that are corrupt. Even you at the grassroots level, you can be corrupt, and you are supposed to begin from yourself. Like Michael Jackson was saying, begin with the man in the mirror. Begin by changing the man in the mirror, and then we are going to have a bigger change in the community. And that's it is still a clarion call for all of us. We have understood that the head of state alone cannot do it. Now, what are we at our individual levels doing? For example, I know that there are some moments where you feel like it's near impossible to go without being corrupt, but if we all say no, for example, I'm going back to schools because that is one very sensitive point, because you know that private schools are very expensive, so the alternative is government schools, and we really want children to go to where we can afford to pay their fees and then buy them books. Now, if you go to a school and if every single parent says no to the 100 or 20 times envelope to give, for sure that there will be some point where this is going to reduce, with or without the principals being sanctioned or called to order. We are going to contribute our own share, first of all, as individuals, to the fight against corruption. Now, if we can also, Hyacinth, go back to churches, we can never really underestimate the place of the church in the fight against corruption. I know that the Bible says in the Mahomet commandment, so don't take what does not belong to you, even in church. We have to, of course, nobody is perfect.
Yes, promise.
We have
let's pick
men
this.
Of God, priests, pastors.
Yes, let's pick this reaction from the very many that we have here. Corruption has developed in our community in a point that it is accepted as a way of life. So the police of corruption turn to also feed on corruption. The laxity, complicity, and compliancy of the entire system has rendered the population absolutely powerless, and the perpetrators have developed wings of impunity. So how do we team as such stop? How do we team to fight the canker worm? I think that's coming from Victor in Douala. Yes, you were itching to react.
No, I like the reaction of the
message.
The last speaker. That corruption is systemic in Cameroon.
Yes,
but at our individual levels, we can say no. Gentlemen, I will use this opportunity to greet the president of the anti-corruption of the Cameroon Bar Association. I did not know her until when we were appointed. This woman goes around, even when she's going to court, if she sees any 500 that is being exchanged between an officer and a bike person, she stops it. And we should deny, because I said it in one of my outings. Either you are induced, you are forced into it, or you are coerced. That is, there are so many ways that they polish corruption, and then they bring you into it, and you become an actor.
They give you different
but
names.
we can.
Yes.
For instance, until when we shall wait to see Cameroon have a single treasury account where all fines, charges are paid in our treasuries or in banks before they go there. But for this moment, I as a lawyer, what do I do at my level? Any money that I pay, I insist for a receipt. That money, I must have a receipt to it. Be it before the registry, be it before any other office of the court.
Is it a manual or a computerized receipt? Because
even if it's not computerized, let me tell you something. But we can use it after, if we notice that you went around to have that receipt. So you wanted to put another question?
No, that is why I wanted to point out, because some people feel that some little gestures maybe is not corruption. I just take a simple example. Those who have cars, where you park your car, the guys who issue receipts, most often some people do not collect the receipts, but they give money.
That's right.
No, at the point, it may be your will.
Yes.
Maybe just two. But then,
what becomes of the receipt?
What becomes of the receipt? Because at the end of the day, the money collected will not be equivalent to the receipt dished out.
Yes. Well, I'm a jurist, but not a barrister. Maybe a barrister, I think the barrister understands better when we talk about our definition of corruption in Article 334.
You have just 1 minute because we have to move
talk
to
about
the next
passive
topic,
and active. Now you realize that when you fail to collect that receipt, you are already.
That is what we're saying.
That's what we're saying.
And that
we are saying that the receipt should be collected in exchange of the money you are paying.
Of course,
Yes.
it should be collected because that is what it's been meant for. And that even goes to what you talk about, the impact of corruption to development. Because at that point, where you don't even collect the receipts, you see that you are hindering development because the money that is being due for those receipts and what is supposed to be used by the local councils for the development of that community. You know, corruption is some sort of like the debt we find around Yaoundé and other cities where everybody litters and litters, but they say, oh, the place is dirty. But we all are, majority are involved in it. So in order to tackle it, we have to come back to our own self-discipline. And I don't think that only remains in the hands of the state, but also of the civil society.
Thank you so much. We shall take a little transition, and then before we talk about our last topic of the day. Thank you. And like I said, for those who are watching us, I have a pile of messages. Please, when you are writing, be concise and precise, because we may not have enough time to read long messages. Promise Akante, the head of state, was so bitter on the nature of government spending in our country. What is wrong with the way government spend public money?
Let's just begin from their lifestyle. You know, there's this other African president, I don't know if I'm going to call his name, who asked that, if you want to buy a Mercedes for yourself as a mayor, buy with your money. Why would you be spending tens and tens of millions of dollars to buy a car for yourself? That money could put public toilets in a market or some schools, or provide benches for some public schools. Why would you want to use government money to buy yourself luxurious things? That's a simple example. Look at the fleet of cars that accompany every single government official in Cameroon. We are not saying that they don't deserve luxury, but look at other countries who are even far more developed than us. What fleet of cars do you see? I think that even neighboring Nigeria, we saw some videos of recent where the president in neighboring Nigeria was moving around and there was no fleet of cars moving around with him. Why should we think
about
that
80 cars?
Why do we think that it is the number of cars that you have in your fleet that give you power? Why should we think that it's buying the most expensive whiskey that makes you a good minister or a good government official? Why do you think that it's wearing the most expensive suit that makes you a good government official? There are basic things that we see that can be avoided. Why do you think that it's using the government phone in your office to call all family members and talk for hours on the phone that makes you a good minister or a good director? There are so many things that people think like they are trivial. They are not trivial. They are very important. They are speaking volumes of how much mismanagement you can portray. If you think that to drive one car and go to work is punishment to you, why would you want so many cars in your fleet? Why would you want the most expensive shoe in the most luxurious supermarket, for example? We have traditional regalias in Cameroon that if you want to start wearing each traditional regalia for every day to go to the office, you will not finish in 1 year to wear all our different traditional regalias. How are we promoting our culture? How are we ministers or directors who cannot even simply feel for the populations? Now you build a very big house. I have nothing against big houses. I love big houses. But you build a very extravagantly big house and just close to you, your nearest neighbor is living in one, makeshift plank house. And how do you feel? Face me, I face you. And Carabo, to be more precise, in some very funny maracage, with no drinking water in the next house. You have many taps flowing endlessly. Meanwhile, your nearest neighbor does not have. Your community, your quarter does not have. Some tar up to their houses, and you see where this person's house ends. That's where the tar ends. That often go drunk in his all of these things. It's not like they're going unperceived. Everybody is seeing them. Even the head of state is seeing them. I don't want to pride myself like a Cameroonian, because we always say that our president is the most guarded president in the whole wide world with so many fleets of cars and bikes. But now let's come back to his ministers, his directors, all of those who are supposed to collaborate with him and supposed to make this government better managed. Are they conscious of the fact that this is called taxpayers' money? And talking of taxes, another one is coming, that visa tax, it's another debate. But now what do they do with taxpayers' monies?
Yeah, Professor
that is
Kante,
the problem.
I'll be coming back to you. Barrister, is it about cutting down costs or making our priorities what priorities should be? Because we have the impression that resources are misdirected to maybe certain things that we do not need for now, whether they are pressing needs.
Cameroon is the highest importer of luxurious things because of ostentation.
Well, yeah, but
for a poor country.
but I think I beg to differ with the president of this country, in as much as we want to talk about the cutting of the public spending.
Yes.
How many ministers do we have in Cameroon, and who created them? And when you do that in order to win your political gains, dividing wealth to rule by creating structures, institutions left and right, Cameroon is the only country, it beats my imagination, it's the only country where we are weeping there is poverty. And a corporation is collapsing, but you've never heard that the general manager of the corporation and his own household are on the streets like teachers. But this is unheard of. No matter how the institution is sinking, the officials of that institution, they still live their lives. They travel abroad, they do what they want to do. So when the president of the country comes back and he talks about cutting public expenditure, meaning that we need to look at our recurring budget that we used to buy cars, stationaries and all of that we need to cut it today. Is that going to impact on the, what is going to be its impact when the ministerial departments, or departments are still there, when the same ministers, secretaries of state that need those resources are still there? Do we? I think, let me come before you take the microphone from me. There's a minister in this country, the former minister of territorial administration. He instituted a system in this country where dues, when they bought a car for you and you are a due, as you move with the car. You are moving with the car. If you are rotating, you are rotating with the car. Meaning that at the end of the day, you need to be careful with the vehicle that is given to you, how you use it. These are some of the things that we could do. What is the lifespan of the minister's vehicle? These are things that the Ministry of State Property could check them. That you could run a car for at least 10 years. Because if other Cameroonians are importing cars that are used for 20 years, what about the ministers? Do you know the lifespan of, if they tell you, they call it in their parlance. You know, the French language is very good in flashy. When they want to turn it around, they say réforme mobilier or mobilier, all of those things. So we are denying, and we are not with the President of the Republic when he talks about cutting of this public spending today, because
maybe they are overdoing, which is not what the head of state.
No, not overdoing. There is nothing that you say overdoing. We are saying that when did it start that the that the recurring budget of the country will be more than the investment budget? Why don't we have companies in this country? Why are the corporations collapsing? Because they put emphasis on the recurring budget, because that is where the ministers will use the same vehicles to go do politics. They will use the same vehicles to do their other activities. No, nothing is regulated. There is one minister that came to power or came to a ministry in this country. I will use this opportunity to greet him. Pascal Anon Adibime. He left today like a senator. He wanted to put checks and balances on the use of state ruling stock, actually regulating that. Helicopters that the militaries run in this country, do you know who repairs them? Do you know that is state property? The vehicles that belong to the police, the gendarmerie, all of that are state property. Who manages them? All those things were supposed to be managed by the Ministry of State Property. But do you know, because of various interests, there is some politicking, and these vehicles, some evaporate, some disappear.
Anyway,
you understand?
Yeah, that is to be verified.
They reform them without going through the process.
That is to be verified. Please, briefly.
All of last week we were listening to different structures coming up with their budgets that are going to run for this year, and yes. I was particularly curious with the University of Bamenda, their running budget, how much they are going to use for investment. Dear me, it was just a few million francs here. That's the University of Bamenda that needs a lot of structures. Yeah. But they draw up a very large budget, but what they're going to invest in is not up to 10 million francs.
Which means the budget is consumption oriented.
Consumption budget.
Yes.
Yes, you were itching to react.
Yeah,
briefly, because we are almost getting out.
Yes, I needed to react to this. You see, when the President of the Republic talks about cutting of public expenditure, you know, I always like to look at it from this angle where a barrister has made mention of a lot of these things. That's the ministerial department. Before, you see, we have, for a country as small as Cameroon, we have about 50, how many ministries and the like. So, and you start asking the question, the running budget of the ministry itself, only to run the institution, not talk about implementing this project, that is a whole problem. But where I really see a bone of contention is at the level of the projects that have been put in place, because we could not be talking about cutting government expenditure, or where if we had that situation where money that were being allocated for projects were being realized. Now, first, we have a problem of project realization. You realize that there are projects that we budget for those projects more than 3 times or 4 times.
The Bamenda Ring Road has been budgeted
there are so many
for
of
more
these
than a decade.
There are so many of these examples. So you realize that we come at a point where we over budget for some of these things. It doesn't only end at that level. You also have to look at cutting of government expenditure at the level of implementation of state policies. At that level, you realize that there are a lot of state policies which are not being implemented, that if it were being implemented, it will go a long way to cop up that state expenditure. But follow-up of developmental project is a key. It's a key to cop out government expenditure. Imagine a situation where, or resolving key crisis. I want to take the issue of Cameroon, the Northwest and Southwest problem in Cameroon, the Anglophone crisis. You know how much Cameroon is spending for that for that war or for the crisis? What if we had looked for a lasting solution to that problem? You realize that we will not be spending as much as possible as we're spending for it. There's a whole lot going in it. And there are so many of these examples. I made mention of resolving problems amicably or in due course rather than double expenditure. Following up state infrastructure or state developmental projects that are being put in place, because we have double expenditure per these projects. Looking at state, because on that note, I may not go like every other person. I would say there are some ministers and directors which, if you look at the way they are living their lives, you believe that you think that they are shoe menders. Because they live as per the budget. Yeah, you can count them, but they are there. It's good to also acknowledge them. There are so many that I know. Their cars looks like that of I don't know, but they are doing that. So we need to distinguish some of these people.
Thank you. With bicycles. So where are we? And Sweden is one of the best countries on planet Earth, and they are more developed than Cameroon. Why do we think that a minister in Cameroon is riding every day? No, not only riding. And a minister uses the same car with the secretary and the rest.
What is wrong with you and here?
We talk about this. And what's that?
No, we didn't. No, I didn't. We've not said anything bad.
Waving it away, but it's a good example.
Yes, of course.
And we should praise the right examples and say yes, to live like them.
There are people that need to actually look like them. That is why. But resuming all this, putting all this in a nutshell, I would say that it boils back to the local population, the civil society, to be able to take their destiny and also control. Don't only call upon the state, but also wake up.
Thank you. Promise.
Not to go and buy a bottle of wine for 1.5 million francs, to go and buy a bottle of wine for 2 million francs.
This is definitely your last word. Promise. Please. Yes. This is definitely your last word in 15 seconds, please.
In 15 seconds is to remind us all that this country is still ours. No matter what happens, it is still our country. So whether you're a minister today or tomorrow, we still have Cameroon before, during, and after you. And what you do in your Cameroon of today is absolutely going to affect the Cameroon of tomorrow.
No time, Barrister, 5 seconds.
No, just to thank you for taking us and to tell you that the anti-corruption of the Cameroon Bar Association has joined the caravan. You were there with us and you listened. Konak gave us a hand. We're going to work on a memorandum of understanding with them. The National Assembly gave us a hand. And we are thinking, we are lawyers, we operate multifaceted, and we are going to join this fight. And we are sure that things are not going to be the same again. At the level of the bar, we are doing our best.
Thank you. And it is here that we draw the curtains of the program. This country belongs to all of us, and do your little effort at your little corner to be able to fight corruption and be able to check government spending, because if it is good, it's for all of us. It is bad, all of us will face it. Till we meet again next Saturday, stay away from trouble. Bye-bye.